What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is Alex Tex Kate, and today we're going to talk about my Walther PDP I competition build, how it's escalated from stock, what my plans are in the future, and my experience of running it in competition. This is also a follow-up to a review that you guys seem to really like that was about a year ago. So I figured I'd do a little bit more on the Walther as I make my way further with it. So I bought this initially as a teaching gun. It was going to be something that I was going to bring out anytime I'm teaching so that people could get their hands on a good mid-grade, solid, full-size polymer gun. Then I started to like it a little bit too much. Next thing you know, I shot in a USPSA match, and I'm wanting to do something a little bit more with it. Fast forward a little bit further, and I realized that I really didn't have a competition legal gun for IDPA, and this was. So I did a few things here I'm going to talk about. This is my IDPA gun, and I also carry this gun, not every day, but very often. So firstly is going to be the LokGrip's brass backstrap. That backstrap does more than just add a little bit of weight to the gun. It's not just a weight, at least to me. The thing that I noticed the most from it is not only on a 25-ounce-ish firearm, which is very light, and it being extremely snappy at recoil impulse, it gives me a little bit more of a thud feeling and less of a pop feeling in direct relation to my hand and felt response from the recoil. On top of that, it does, yes, add a couple of ounces to where when I am grabbing that gun, it is more like my other competition guns, which are on the heavier side. So for me, that was a mix of need for adding a hair of weight as well as a different recoil impulse. Next to that is going to be my aluminum Magwell from LokGrips. In IDPA, Magwells are allowed in carry optics as long as it fits the IDPA carry optics box. So I threw one of those on there, and as always, you know, if you watch my videos, you know I love Magwells, you know I love reloads. So that just makes it absolutely that much more effortless, especially from an inner waistband reload when I am so in my space doing it with a shirt flopping around in and out of the way. Now, the next thing I want to mention is going to be base pads, because it does matter what base pads you use for the Magwell. I highly recommend just going with LokGrip's base pads for your PDP. These are +0 base pads, but they fit the Magwell effortlessly. Drops right out. No problems at all. It's super easy, super simple. It's an always seat setup. Moving past that, something obviously very obvious here is an X300 from Surefire. Being IDPA has low light scenarios, I made sure that I added a light to this competition setup as it is necessary at least with my local IDPA matches. Surefire X300 is a king of weapon lights. The next one, I guess, would be a mod light, because those are pretty sweet. But it works. It may suit you to do a TRL1 because it's a hair shorter, especially if you are doing what I'm doing with appendix inner waistband. But I chose a light that I know is good for all. Now, the most important thing that I did to this gun was the Sprinco recoil management system. So the Sprinco recoil management system is actually a dual spring guide rod. It has an internal spring towards the back where it contacts your barrel, and then it has your overspring like a standard guide rod spring. So what this secondary subspring does is it cushions that slide to frame impact, which is where that pop comes from that I was initially talking about with why I chose the brass backstrap. So with a mix of the Sprinco and the brass backstrap, I get a really nice recoil impulse with my chosen loads that again match the Sprinco. I have it tuned at about 129, 130 power factor. And once you start going above that, you got to use a different spring. Otherwise, like I learned with this, you can get that spring locked up inside and it's kind of a pain to get the gun apart at that point. But that's at user error, not at product error. You have to make sure you pay attention to the ammunition/power factor requirements per spring. The last thing I want to talk about on here is going to be my choice of optic, which, if you've ever seen this before, this is a Lux Tactical Skyraider. The Skyraider is a brand new optic on the market from a new company that really seemed to have put a lot of time into these things. It's a dual microchip optic, so it runs differently on a single dot versus when it's running the holographic setup versus the multi-reticle options that it has. It has a 30,000 hour battery life. I've had this thing on for a month now. I've put a good 1,000 rounds through it. I've not had a single situation where it dimmed out, where anything changed, where it didn't shake awake when it was supposed to, or anything of that nature. It started with an SRO, moved to an RMR, and now I am with a Lux Tactical Skyraider. And with another Shadow 2 on the way, I am very highly considering throwing another one of these optics on there. Link for that will be in the description below, as well as a link for the review video that I did do on that optic. But all in all, LokGrip's brass backstrap, LokGrip's Magwell, LokGrip's Basepads, code TEX10 for 10% off, Surefire X300, and most importantly, my Springco recoil management system paired with my Lux Tactical Skyraider. Those two together, just as a reminder, allows me to keep my dot in the window. When you shoot this thing stock, that dot disappears when you shoot. Now, you're not supposed to be looking at it anyway, but I like to keep it within my peripheral view as I'm shooting, at least as far as my competition gun recoil goes. So adding those two things together has allowed for me to get only minimal rise of the dot and allow me to get back down to target a lot faster, a lot more confidently, and within my personal preferences. Moving forward, I am looking forward to not only porting this, but changing out the trigger. The trigger that does come on this has creep to it. It has a little bit of crunchiness, but you don't really notice it that much when you're shooting. But just because you don't notice it doesn't mean it may not cause a problem at some point. You're scratching your head over. Luckily, Walther offers this Pro trigger here. This is definitely what's going to end up coming in here, as I have put my hands on that, and it is a effortless break. There is none of that crap creep or crunch. It is a beautiful trigger. So those are the next two things that are going to be getting done here, and I will definitely do a gunsmithing video on changing the trigger as well as when I go to test it. The porting, I can't really show you guys that getting done, but I will have a video out there of me testing it as soon as that happens. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for those videos. I plan to do a lot more with the Walther PDP. It has been a great gun for me, and outside of the want for it to be a steel frame, I have no complaints. So all in all, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. This is Alex Tex Kate signing off.